You ever have one of those moments where you know you're screwing up, like right as it's happening, but your brain just sits there, popcorn in hand, watching the disaster unfold? Yeah, that was me last night, tangled in bedsheets, my girlfriend's, warmth pressed against me, and my dumbass thumb scrolling Reddit like it was the key to eternal happiness. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. But let me rewind, because this story, this glorious, cringe-inducing train wreck, deserves the full picture. I'm 23, and my girlfriend, let's call her Ellie, is 24. She's got this blonde hair that catches the light like it's trying to start a fire, and blue eyes that can make you feel like you're the only person in the universe, or like you're about to be sentenced to the guillotine, depending on her mood. We've been together for a little over a year, and we've got this ritual. After we, get close, those moments where the world shrinks down to just the two of us, all sweat and whispers and tangled limbs, we don't just roll over and pass out. No, we linger, we cuddle. We let the afterglow stretch out like a lazy cat in a sunbeam, talking about nothing and everything, her head on my chest, my fingers tracing circles on her back. It's sacred, or at least it was. Last night, though, I fumbled the ball. Hard. We'd been lying there for maybe 45 minutes, her body curled against mine, her breathing soft and steady like a metronome. I could feel the heat of her skin, the way her hair tickled my shoulder. It was perfect. Too perfect maybe, because my brain decided it was bored. You ever notice how your mind can betray you like that? One minute you're basking in bliss and the next you're itching for something to do. That's when the Reddit itch hit me. You know the one. That little voice whispering, just check your phone. One quick peek. See if your last comment got any upvotes. It's like a mosquito buzzing in your ear, and I'm the idiot who decided to swat at it. So I reached for my phone on the nightstand, careful not to jostle Ellie too much. She was facing away from me, her back pressed against my chest, so I figured I could sneak in a quick scroll without her noticing. I mean, come on, who hasn't done this? A little midnight Reddit sesh while your partner's blissfully unaware? It's practically a national pastime. I opened the app, and the familiar glow of the screen lit up my face like I was about to embark on a sacred quest. I started scrolling, diving into the usual mix of memes, shower thoughts, and of course TIFU posts, because apparently I needed inspiration for my own impending disaster. Here's the thing about Reddit. It's a black hole. You don't just dip into it. You fall in head first and suddenly 20 minutes have vanished and you're deep in a thread about whether pineapple belongs on pizza. It does, fight me. That's exactly what happened. I was chuckling to myself, upvoting comments like I was handing out Oscars when I felt Ellie shift. Just a little at first, like she was adjusting her position. Then she went still. Too still. You know that kind of stillness? The kind that feels like the air just got sucked out of the room? Yeah, that. What are you doing? Her voice was quiet, but it had an edge, like a knife wrapped in velvet. I froze, my thumb hovering over a post about a guy who accidentally sent his boss a meme instead of a spreadsheet. My heart did that thing where it tries to climb into your throat. Nothing, I said, because apparently, I'm an idiot who thinks lying is a personality trait. Just checking something. She turned her head, slow and deliberate, like a horror movie villain about to reveal their face. Those blue eyes locked onto mine, and let me tell you, they weren't sparkling with love and adoration anymore. You're on your phone, she said, not a question, just a statement, cold and flat. You're scrolling Reddit, aren't you? Now, here's where I could have salvaged things. I could have put the phone down, laughed it off, pulled her close and said, "You're right, I'm being dumb, let's just be here together." But did I do that? Of course not. Because when you're in the middle of digging your own grave, sometimes you just grab a bigger shovel. I was just, winding down, I mumbled, which was about as convincing as a toddler denying they ate the cookies while covered in crumbs. Her eyes narrowed, and I could feel the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. Winding down? She repeated, her voice dripping with disbelief. We're lying here, together. After that and you're winding down on Reddit? I should have stopped talking. I should have just nodded, apologized, and begged for mercy. But my mouth, apparently operating on its own cursed autopilot, decided to double down. "It's not a big deal, Ellie. I just needed a little distraction. You were like half asleep anyway." "Oh, buddy." If I thought her eyes were cold before, they were straight up Arctic now. She sat up, pulling the blanket around her like a shield. "A distraction?" she said, each word sharp enough to cut glass. "You needed a distraction from this? From us?" This was my last chance, my final exit ramp before the highway to hell. I could have groveled. I could have thrown my phone across the room and sworn off social media forever. But instead, God help me, I got defensive. You ever feel yourself slipping into an argument you know you're gonna lose, but your pride's like, "Nah, bro. We got this?" That was me leaning into the skid. "Look, I'm sorry, okay?" I said, but it came out more annoyed than apologetic. I don't know. Sometimes I need a little brain break. It's not like I'm ignoring you. I'm right here." She stared at me, and for a second I thought maybe I'd gotten through. Maybe she'd sigh, roll her eyes, and we'd laugh about it in the morning. But then she spoke, and her voice was so quiet it scared me more than if she'd yelled. "You're not here," she said. "Not really. You're in your phone chasing what? Internet points, upvotes. You think that's more important than this moment? And here, folks, is where I earned my gold medal in self-sabotage. I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was the late hour, or the adrenaline of the argument, or just my brain deciding to yeet itself out the window. But I opened my mouth and out came the dumbest thing I've ever said in my entire 23 years on this planet. Well, sometimes seeing my karma go up gets me off more than you ever could. Time stopped. The room went silent, like the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting to see how much worse I could make this. My words hung in the air, heavy and toxic, like I'd just dropped a verbal nuke. Ellie's face. God. Her face. It wasn't even anger at first, just this raw, gut-punched hurt, like I'd taken something precious and stomped on it. Then the anger came, fast and fierce, her eyes blazing like twin suns. "Get out," she said, her voice low and shaking. "Now." I tried to backpedal, of course. "Ellie, wait. I didn't mean it. That was so stupid. I'm sorry." But she wasn't having it. She pointed at the door, her hand trembling but her resolve ironclad. I said, "Get out. I don't want to hear it. Just go." And that's how I found myself standing in my own hallway, barefoot in boxers and a t-shirt, holding my phone like it was the world's shittiest consolation prize. The door clicked shut behind me, and I was alone. The weight of my own stupidity, pressing down like a 1,000-pound anvil. I'd taken the best part of my life, those quiet, perfect moments with Ellie, and traded them for a few cheap laughs on Reddit. And for what? A couple of upvotes? A fleeting dopamine hit? I stood there, staring at the closed door, wondering how I'd gone from cuddling the love of my life to exiled in my own apartment in under an hour. This wasn't just a fuck-up. This was a catastrophe. And the worst part? I knew I deserved it. But here's the thing about fuck-ups. Sometimes they're not just endings. Sometimes they're the start of something else. Something harder, messier, but maybe, just maybe, worth fighting for. I didn't know it yet, standing there in the dark, but this was only the beginning of the story. And trust me, it gets worse before it gets better. There I was, standing in the hallway of my own apartment, barefoot, in boxers and a faded t-shirt that smelled vaguely of yesterday's tacos, holding my phone like it was both my lifeline and my executioner. The door to the bedroom, our bedroom, had just clicked shut behind me, and the sound was louder than a gunshot in my head. Ellie's words, "Get out," echoed like a bad song stuck on repeat, and I could still see the hurt in her blue eyes, sharp enough to carve my heart into confetti. I'd fucked up. Not just a little, oops, forgot to take out the trash fuck up, but a full-on apocalyptic, why did I say that catastrophe. And the worst part? I had no one to blame but myself. You ever stand in a moment so raw, so painfully real, that you can feel every second ticking by like it's mocking you? That was me, staring at the closed door, my breath shallow, my brain scrambling for a way to undo the last 10 minutes. I wanted to knock, to beg, to throw myself at Ellie's feet and swear I'd never touch Reddit again. But I knew her well enough to know that knocking right now would be like tossing a match into a pool of gasoline. She needed space, and I needed to figure out how I'd gone from cuddling the love of my life to exiled in my own hallway, faster than you can say, upvote. I shuffled down the hall to the living room, my bare feet slapping against the cold hardwood. The apartment was dark, the kind of dark that feels like it's judging you. I sank onto the couch, still clutching my phone, and for a second I almost opened Reddit again. I swear it was muscle memory, like my thumb was programmed to betray me. But I caught myself, tossed the phone onto the coffee table like it was cursed, and buried my face in my hands. What the hell had I done? Let's rewind just a bit, because I need you to understand how I got here. Ellie and I were not perfect, but we're good, you know? We met at a friend's game night where she annihilated me at Scrabble with a triple word score on Quixotic. I was smitten from the jump. Her laugh, her quick wit, the way she could make even a losing streak feel like a win. A year later, we're living together, building a life out of late-night pizza runs, stupid inside jokes, and those post-intimate moment cuddles that make you feel like the world can't touch you. But last night I didn't just touch the world. I invited it into our bed in the form of a glowing screen and a stupid app. And then I made it worse by saying the most idiotic thing possible. That Reddit karma got me off more than she did. I mean, who says that? Apparently I do, because I'm a walking disaster with a PhD in self-sabotage. Sitting there on the couch, I replayed the argument in my head, each word a fresh stab. Ellie's face when I said it, God, that look. It wasn't just anger, it was betrayal, like I'd taken something sacred and traded it for pocket change. And the thing is, she wasn't wrong. I hadn't been there, not really. I was physically next to her, sure, but my mind was off chasing internet points. Those little orange arrows that mean absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. I'd chosen a fleeting dopamine hit over the woman who makes my heart do backflips. And now here I was, banished to the couch, wondering if I just tanked the best thing in my life. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, where a faint water stain from last year's leaky pipe looked vaguely like a middle finger. Fitting. My mind was a mess, ping-ponging between guilt, panic, and this weird, stubborn urge to defend myself. Because, okay, hear me out. Was scrolling Reddit really that bad? I mean, it's not like I was cheating or ignoring her for hours. It was just a few minutes, right? She was half asleep anyway. But even as I tried to rationalize it, I knew I was full of it. It wasn't about the scrolling. Not really. It was about what it said. That in that moment I cared more about strangers' approval than about being present with her. And then I went and confirmed it with the dumbest sentence in the history of dumb sentences. I grabbed a throw blanket from the back of the couch, Ellie's favorite, the soft one she always hogs, and wrapped it around myself, trying to find some comfort. It smelled like her, like lavender and that coconut shampoo she uses, and that just made everything worse. I kept seeing her face, the way her voice shook when she told me to leave. I kept hearing my own voice, smug and defensive, throwing out that karma line like I was some edgy comedian. Who does that? Who takes a moment that's supposed to be about connection and chucks it out the window for a cheap laugh? I must have sat there for an hour, maybe two, stewing in my own misery. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that amplifies every creak and hum until you're convinced the walls are whispering your sins. I kept glancing at the hallway, half expecting Ellie to come out, maybe to yell some more, maybe to forgive me. But the door stayed shut, and each minute that passed felt like another brick in the wall I'd built between us. Eventually, I grabbed my phone, not to scroll, I swear, but to do something, anything, to stop feeling like a complete loser. I opened my notes app and started typing, just stream of consciousness stuff, trying to make sense of the mess in my head. Dear Ellie, I wrote, then deleted it because it sounded too formal, like I was drafting a cover letter for my own redemption. I'm an idiot, I tried instead, which felt closer to the truth but still didn't capture it. How do you apologize for something like this? How do you explain that you didn't mean it, that you'd give anything to take it back without sounding like you're just trying to save your own ass? I ended up writing a rambling, incoherent mess, Half apology, half confession, half existential crisis. Yeah, I know that's too many halves, but math isn't my strong suit right now. I wrote about how much I love her, how she makes every day better, how I don't even care about Reddit, not really. I wrote about how I got caught up in the stupid thrill of seeing my karma tick up, how it's like a game I didn't even realize I was playing. I wrote about how I'm terrified I've broken something that can't be fixed, and how I'd rather lose my phone in a wood chipper than lose her. It wasn't Shakespeare, but it was honest, and that's more than I could say for the guy who'd opened his big mouth an hour ago. By the time I finished, my eyes were stinging, and not just because I'd been staring at a screen in the dark. I saved the note, locked my phone, and set it face down on the table. Writing it felt good, like lancing a wound, but it didn't solve anything. Ellie was still behind that door, and I was still out here, a refugee in my own living room. I pulled the blanket tighter, curled up on the couch, and tried to sleep. But sleep was about as cooperative as a cat in a bathtub. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, heard her voice, felt the weight of my own stupidity pressing down. Here's the thing about fuck-ups. They don't just end when the fight does. They linger like a bad smell you can't quite pinpoint. And this one? This one was a 5-alarm fire, and I was the idiot who'd been playing with matches. But somewhere in the haze of guilt and regret, a tiny spark of something else flickered. Not hope, not exactly, but determination. I wasn't going to let this be the end of us. I couldn't. Ellie was worth more than my pride, more than my dumb habits, more than a million upvotes. I didn't know how I was going to fix this, but I knew I had to try. As I lay there staring into the dark, I made a promise to myself. No more Reddit in bed. No more choosing screens over her. No more letting my mouth run away with me. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And maybe, just maybe, it was enough to keep me from losing the best thing I've ever had. But that's a story for another night, because trust me, this mess is far from over. You ever wake up feeling like you've been hit by a truck, but the truck is your own bad decisions, and it's backing up to run you over again? That was me, sprawled on the couch, my neck stiff from sleeping at an angle that would make a chiropractor weep. Ellie's lavender-scented blanket tangled around me like a metaphor for my life. The living room was gray with early morning light, the kind that sneaks through the blinds and makes everything look sadder than it needs to. My phone was still face down on the coffee table, silent as a scolded child, and the apartment was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat, thumping out a rhythm of regret. I'd spent the night banished from our bedroom, exiled for my sins, namely scrolling Reddit like a dope and then telling my girlfriend Ellie that internet karma got me off more than she did. Yeah, I'm that guy, the one who takes a perfect moment and yeets it into the abyss. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and immediately wished I hadn't. The weight of last night's fight crashed over me like a tidal wave, all sharp edges and cold dread. Ellie's face, those blue eyes flashing with hurt and fury, played on a loop in my head. "Get out," she'd said, and I had, because what else could I do? But now, in the harsh light of morning, I was starting to realize the size of the hole I'd dug. This wasn't just a spat we'd laugh about over coffee. This was a 5-alarm fire, and I was the idiot who'd been playing with matches. Worse, I didn't even know if she'd let me near enough to try putting it out. I glanced down the hallway toward the bedroom door, still shut, still silent. Part of me wanted to march over, knock, and pour out the half-baked apology I'd typed into my phone at 3 a.m. But another part, the part that's maybe not as dumb as it looks, knew that barging in would only make things worse. Ellie's not the type to cool off in a few hours. When she's mad, she's like a storm. You don't argue with it, you just hunker down and wait for it to pass. So I stayed put, my butt glued to the couch, trying to figure out how to unfuck my life. You know how they say the first step to fixing a problem is admitting you have one? Well, I had no trouble with that part. I'm an idiot. Certified gold star, might as well tattoo it on my forehead, idiot. I'd taken one of our best moments, those post-intimate cuddles where the world feels soft and safe, and traded it for a quick hit of Reddit dopamine. And then, because apparently I'm allergic to good choices, I doubled down with the dumbest thing I've ever said. I kept hearing it, my own voice, smug and reckless. Seeing my karma go up gets me off more than you ever could. I mean, Jesus, who let me out in public with a mouth like that? I groaned loud enough to startle myself and buried my face in my hands. Step 1. Check. Step 2. Actually doing something about it? That was going to be trickier. I stood up, my joints popping like I was 80 instead of 23, and shuffled to the kitchen. Coffee. Coffee would help. Coffee always helps, right? As I fumbled with the machine, spilling grounds on the counter like a toddler, with a glitter obsession, I started thinking about Ellie. Not just the fight, but her, the way she laughs at her own terrible puns, the way she hums off key when she's doing dishes, the way she makes me want to be better than I am. We've had fights before, stupid stuff, like whose turn it was to vacuum or why I keep leaving. Dishes in the sink, but nothing like this. This felt different, deeper, like I'd crossed a line I didn't even know was there. The coffee machine gurgled and I leaned against the counter, staring at the fridge where a Polaroid of us was stuck, with a magnet. It was from last summer at a music festival, both of us sunburned and grinning, her blonde hair glowing in the sunlight. I looked at that picture, at the way she was leaning into me, and my chest ached. I didn't just want to fix this, because I hated sleeping on the couch or because I was scared of losing her. Though, yeah, that was part of it. I wanted to fix it because she deserved better. She deserved a guy who'd choose her over a phone screen, who'd know when to shut his big mouth, who'd be present. And I wanted to be that guy. I just had no idea how to get there. I poured a mug of coffee, burning my fingers because I'm apparently incapable of basic tasks, and sat back on the couch. The iPhone was still there, taunting me. I picked it up, not to scroll. God, no, I'd learned that lesson, but to read the note I'd written last night. It was a mess, all raw emotion and run-on sentences. But it was real. I'd poured my heart into it, or at least the parts that weren't busy kicking themselves. I read it over, wincing at the clumsier bits, but feeling a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the way in. Maybe if I could show her I understood what I'd done, how sorry I was, she'd at least hear me out. But words on a screen weren't enough. I knew that. Ellie's not a grand gesture kind of person. She doesn't want rose petals or sky-written apologies. She wants real, quiet, honest effort. So I started thinking about what that could look like. I could start small, right? Clean. The apartment, make her breakfast, give her space, but let her know I'm here. And maybe when the time was right, I could give her the note, or say it out loud, or something. I wasn't sure yet. All I knew was I had to try, because the alternative, losing her, wasn't an option. I spent the next hour tidying up, moving like a man possessed. I washed the dishes, wiped down the counters, even folded the laundry that had been sitting in the dryer for 3 days. It wasn't much, but it felt like a start, like I was proving to myself I could do better. The whole time I kept glancing at the bedroom door, listening for any sign of movement. Nothing. Just silence. Thick and heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. Around 9 a.m. I heard it, the soft creak of the bedroom door. My heart did a backflip and I froze, a damp dish towel in my hand. Ellie stepped into the hallway, her blonde hair messy, her eyes red-rimmed like she hadn't slept much either. She was wearing one of my old t-shirts, the one with the faded band logo, and it hit me like a punch how much I loved her, how much I'd taken for granted. She saw me, and for a second, neither of us moved. It was like we were both waiting for the other to make the first move, to set the tone. "Hey," I said, my voice barely above a whisper because anything louder felt too risky. She didn't say anything, just crossed her arms and leaned against the wall, her expression unreadable. That silence was worse than yelling, worse than anything, because it meant she was still hurt, still closed off. I wanted to rush over, wrap her in my arms, tell her I'd fix it, but I stayed put. Space. She needed space. "I made coffee," I said, gesturing to the pot like it was some grand peace offering. And, I cleaned up a bit. I wanted to do something useful. It sounded lame even to me, but it was all I had. She glanced at the kitchen, then back at me, and I saw a flicker of something. Surprise, maybe, or just exhaustion. "Thanks," she said, her voice flat, and walked past me to pour herself a cup. No smile, no warmth, just that single word, and it cut deeper than I expected. I stood there feeling like an intruder in my own home, watching her move with this quiet, deliberate distance. She didn't look at me as she stirred sugar into her coffee, and every second of that silence felt like a test I was failing. "Ellie, I started, but she held up a hand. Not sharp, just firm, like she was drawing a line. "Not now," she said, still not looking at me. "I need time, okay? Just give me time." I nodded, even though she wasn't looking, because what else could I do? "Okay," I said, my voice cracking just a little. "Whatever you need." She took her coffee and disappeared back down the hallway, the bedroom door clicking shut again. And just like that, I was alone again. The dish towel still in my hand, the weight of my fuck-up heavier than ever. But here's the thing. As much as that hurt, as much as I wanted to crawl into a hole and die, I felt something else too. A spark, small but stubborn, telling me this wasn't over. Not yet. Ellie hadn't kicked me out for good. She hadn't packed her bags or thrown my stuff into the hall. She was still here, and that meant there was a chance, a slim, fragile, don't blow it again chance to make this right. I didn't know how and I didn't know when, but I was going to fight for it. For her, because some things, some people are worth every ounce of effort, every sleepless night, every humiliating moment of eating your own words. I sat back down on the couch, the coffee cooling in my mug, and opened my phone to that messy note again. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And maybe, just maybe, it was the first step on the long, bumpy road to redemption. But that road? It's got more twists than a soap opera, and trust me, I'm not out of the woods yet. You ever feel like you're standing at the edge of a cliff? One wrong step away from plummeting into the void, but also one careful move from solid ground? That's where I was, slouched on the couch, a cold coffee mug in my hands, the weight of my own stupidity pressing down like a bad hangover. Ellie had just retreated back to the bedroom, her single word, "Thanks," hanging in the air like a polite slap. She'd asked for time, and I was trying to give it to her, but every second of silence felt like a countdown to something I wasn't sure I could survive. I'd fucked up, big time, scrolling Reddit while we were cuddling, then topping it off with the world's dumbest sentence. "Seeing my karma go up gets me off more than you ever could." Yeah, I'm that genius. But sitting there, staring at the hallway where she'd disappeared, I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't ready to let us, go down without a fight. The apartment was too quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your thoughts scream. I'd spent the morning cleaning like a man possessed, trying to prove I wasn't a complete lost cause, but it felt like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Ellie's red-rimmed eyes, her crossed arms, the way she'd moved past me like I was a stranger. It all kept replaying, each frame a fresh gut punch. I wanted to fix this, needed to, but I was starting to realize that fixing it wasn't just about saying sorry or scrubbing the kitchen counters. It was about showing her I got it, really got it, and that I was willing to do the work to be better. Not just for her, but for me too, because the guy who'd said that stupid thing, I didn't want to be him anymore. I picked up my phone, not to doom scroll God never again, but to open that messy note I'd written in the middle of the night. It was raw, rambling, full of half-formed thoughts and too many adverbs, but it was honest. I'd poured out everything. How much I loved her, how I'd gotten sucked into the dumb thrill of Reddit upvotes, how I was terrified I'd broken something we couldn't rebuild. Reading it now in the sober light of morning, I cringed at the clunkier bits, but I also felt a spark of something like courage. Maybe this was my way in, not the note itself, but what it represented? A starting point. A promise to try. But words alone weren't going to cut it. Ellie's not the type to melt over a poetic apology or a grand gesture. She's practical, grounded, the kind of person who values actions over promises. So I started thinking about what I could do, not just to say sorry, but to show her I understood why she was hurt. I'd already cleaned the apartment, made coffee, given her space. What next? I thought about the little things she loves, her favorite breakfast, Pancakes with extra syrup, the way she lights up when we watch cheesy rom-coms, the quiet moments, when we just talk about nothing and everything. Maybe I could lean into those, not as a bribe, but as a way to remind her of who we are together, who I am when I'm not being a complete idiot. I got up, my legs stiff from too long on the couch, and headed back to the kitchen. Pancakes. I could do pancakes. I'm no chef. My culinary skills peak at instant ramen, but I knew her recipe by heart, mostly because I'd watched her make it 100 times, teasing her about her obsession with perfect batter consistency. I pulled out the ingredients, moving quietly so I wouldn't disturb her, and started mixing. The whisk felt clumsy in my hands, and I got flour on my shirt, but it was something to focus on, something that wasn't just wallowing in guilt. As the batter came together, I let myself imagine her walking in, seeing the effort, maybe cracking a smile. It was a long shot, but hope's a stubborn thing, even when you've got no right to it. While the first pancake sizzled on the pan, I thought about what I'd say if she was ready to talk. Not the note, not verbatim, but the heart of it. I'd tell her I was sorry, not just for the Reddit thing or the stupid comment, but for not being present, for letting a screen steal my attention when I should have been all in, right there with her. I'd tell her she's worth more than 1 million upvotes, more than any fleeting internet high, and that I'd do whatever it took to prove it. And I'd mean it, because the thought of losing her, of waking up without her laugh, her warmth, her everything, was like a knife I couldn't pull out. The pancakes were okay. Not Instagram-worthy, but edible, golden brown, and stacked on a plate with a drizzle of syrup. I set the table just for her, with her favorite mug and a napkin folded into a lopsided heart. It felt small, maybe even silly, but it was something. A gesture. A way to say, I'm here and I'm trying. I didn't call her out or knock on the door. I just left it there, a quiet offering, and went back to the couch to wait. Time dragged. I tried to distract myself, flipped through a magazine, stared at the ceiling, resisted the urge to check my phone. Every creak of the floorboards made my heart jump, but the bedroom door stayed shut. I started to wonder if I'd miscalculated, if she'd see the pancakes and think I was trying to buy her forgiveness with breakfast. Doubt crept in, that old familiar guest, whispering that I'd already blown it, that she was done with me, that I'd be sleeping on this couch forever. But I pushed it back. Not yet. I wasn't giving up yet. Around noon, I heard the door again. My breath caught and I sat up, trying not to look too eager, like a puppy waiting for a treat. Ellie stepped out, still in my old t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She looked tired, her eyes still carrying the weight of last night. But she didn't seem as closed off as before. She glanced at the kitchen, saw the plate of pancakes, and paused. For a second, I thought I saw a flicker of a smile, but it was gone so fast I couldn't be sure. You made breakfast, she said. Not a question, just a statement. Her voice softer than it had been earlier. Yeah, I said, keeping my tone. Light, careful. Figured you might be hungry. No pressure, though, it's just… There. She nodded, just a small tilt of her head, and walked to the table. I watched, holding my breath, as she sat down and picked up a fork. She took a bite, chewed slowly, and I swear it was the longest 5 seconds of my life. Then she looked at me, her expression unreadable, and said, "They're not bad." I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "High praise," I said, risking a small grin. She didn't smile back, but she didn't look away either, and that felt like progress. Tiny, fragile progress, but I'd take it. We sat in silence for a moment, her eating, me pretending to be chill while my heart did somersaults. Finally, she set her fork down and looked at me, really looked at me, her blue eyes steady and searching. "We need to talk," she said, and my stomach dropped, because those words can mean anything from "I forgive you" to "pack your bags." "Okay," I said, nodding, my mouth dry. "Whenever you're ready." She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, but not as tightly as before. "I'm still mad," she started, her voice low but firm. "Not just about the Reddit thing, though that was shitty. It's about what it means. You were right there, with me, in this moment that's supposed to matter, and you chose something else. And then you said that thing." She stopped, her jaw tightening, and I winced, knowing exactly what she meant. It hurt. A lot. Because it made me feel like I'm not enough. Her words hit like a sledgehammer, not because they were harsh, but because they were true. I wanted to jump in, to explain, to beg, but I forced myself to stay quiet, to let her say what she needed to. She deserved that much. I know you didn't mean it, she went on, her voice softening just a fraction. At least I hope you didn't. But it's not just about one stupid comment, it's about being here, really here. I don't want to compete with your phone, or your karma, or whatever else pulls you away. I want us to be real, you know? I nodded, my throat tight. I know, I said, and it came out rough, like I'd swallowed gravel. And I'm so sorry, Ellie. Not just for what I said, but for making you feel like you're not enough. You're everything. And I was an idiot, a complete fucking idiot for not showing it. She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine, like she was trying to decide if I meant it. I held her gaze, letting her see all of it. The regret, the love, the desperate hope that I hadn't ruined us. Finally, she sighed, a small, tired sound, and said, I believe you're sorry, but sorry's just a start. I need to know you're going to try. Really try. I will, I said, the words spilling out faster than I could think. I am. No more Reddit in bed, no more zoning out when I'm with you. I want to be here, Ellie, with you, all in. I'll do whatever it takes. She didn't say anything right away, just looked at me, and I could feel the weight of her doubt, her hurt still lingering. But then she nodded just once and said, okay, we'll see. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a door cracked open, a chance to prove myself. We talked a little more, not about the fight, but about small things, work, the pancakes, the fact that I'd folded the laundry wrong again. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start, a tiny step back toward us. Later, when she went to shower, I pulled out my phone and deleted the Reddit app, not because I thought it'd fix everything, but because it was a symbol of the choice I was making, her over everything else. That night, we didn't cuddle, but she let me sleep in the bed on my side, the space between us wide but not infinite. And as I lay there listening to her breathe, I knew this was just the beginning. Love's not a single moment, not a grand gesture or a perfect apology. It's 1,000 small choices, every day, to show up, to be present, to fight for what matters. I'd fucked up, yeah, but I was learning. And for Ellie, for us, I'd keep learning, keep trying, until I got it right. Because some stories, even the messy ones, are worth fighting for. And this one's ours.